Hi, this is Diana from DivineFractal.com, and we are continuing with our story, The Sasquatch Message to Humanity, Conversations with Elder Kamooh. Chapter 6. After this, I went up north above the 56th parallel, some 300 kilometers from Yukon. The first day of mushroom picking in the deep bush, I came across a dozen or so clear Sasquatch tracks, well printed into the charcoaled soil. They were about 16 inches long, bigger than the ones I had seen on Vancouver Island, with a definite human foot shape with 5 round toes. I shared my discovery with a couple friends who brought it up at camp. The general reaction was the usual laughter and bear explanation, although another picker admitted having seen tracks as well. I succeeded in explaining that Sasquatch is a very well-known being in the stories of many native traditions, especially in BC. But I knew I couldn't mention anything about my encounters there without being met with ridicule and being seen as a weirdo. The next day, as I walked kilometers in the burnt forest, Sasquatch showed himself to me in the physical form. I first heard a sound like a mixture of gentle groans and mumbling. The closest sound I can compare it to, although it might seem funny for some, is the voice of Chewbacca in the Star Wars movies. And you can bet they got their idea from somewhere. I lifted up my head and looked toward where the voice was coming from. And there he was standing, some 200 feet from me, beyond the pile of uprooted trees, with nothing standing between us so that we could exchange a clear visual contact. He was over 8 feet tall, with light brown long fur, taller and more slender than the black one I had seen in Vancouver Island in 2003. Although impressed, I was filled with joy, like if I was meeting an old friend. He said in telepathy, "Here I am. I saw you found my tracks. So you are the human who knows us?" Seeing I was without fear, he was puzzled and shyly crouched behind a big uprooted stump. I could see his face between the roots, observing me with curiosity. A sentient face coming from ancient ages, made of intelligence and sensibility, profound wisdom and deep instincts, strangely human and wild. Although he had a few centuries of age, he was not an ancient learned elder of his people, but he was a leader of his local clan. So I waved at him and started singing a gentle chant, knowing that they love soft music and chants from the heart. He'd only been seen by a few humans in all his life, but all of them were afraid of him. Now he was meeting one who was a friend, what he found interesting but strange compared to the usual hunters or loggers he had seen. He wondered why I was coming with this wave of people picking all the mushrooms and invading his woods in an unprecedented manner. I couldn't pretend that I was gathering my meal, nor wildcrafting, so I explained to him that we exchanged the mushrooms for money so that later we could exchange the money in the human world for other goods we need for our survival. He had already picked up on this strange concept from reading the minds of the pickers, but what he couldn't figure out was why I was the only one of my people who could communicate face to face with him, but was doing the same thing as all the others. This had me ponder, then and afterwards. He finally told me that he was glad to talk with a human, but there was too many of my people invading his woods who couldn't relate with him, so he couldn't stay around in a visible form. And before I knew it, he disappeared from my sight, suddenly vanished. That night, he came to me in dream, and I saw clearly his face smiling over me and thanking me for the chant. The next day, I went in another area and found again some tracks, but a couple inches shorter, from another member of his family. The following day, I returned to the sector where I had encountered him. After a whole day of picking a modest harvest, I was getting ready to return to camp, as the long northern daylight was already dimming out, when I heard the same recognizable voice trying to mumble a shaky melody. After 2 or 3 attempts, I understood that he was asking me to sing again. So I started with a soft chant, to which he replied with a few joyful whoots. After my chant, he tried again a melody, sounding like a clumsy mixture of groans and howls. I did again a mellow chant, and he tried to join with his vocal sounds. This amused me, as I felt like a sacred spiritual connection, which at the same time was also somewhat funny. I chanted the first few lines and stopped, and he tried to repeat it. We repeated the same exercise a few times, until he finally succeeded in howling the right notes in the right order, which made us both very happy. He explained to me that his species communicates through telepathy and has no need for words and speech, so individual Sasquatch don't have any specific names to designate their person. Being telepathic, they don't need to introduce themselves to each other, nor can they lie about themselves. But they use different vocals to express their emotions or communicate their location, either to their own people or to other species who can't communicate with telepathy. They can whisper, whistle, hum, mumble, moan, groan, growl, howl, woot, roar, scream, and mimic certain animals and birds, but they've not developed a musical culture nor a tradition of songs among their people. The sacred chants and spiritual music of the humans is one of the things they appreciate, admire, and miss the most from our people. Musical instruments are among the human inventions that they value above modern technology. He had known of these things from the greater soul of his species, but had not yet heard music himself or experienced prior conversation with any of our human people. As another means of communication, they also have glands that exude a pungent stench unbearable to most species, acting as a repellent for intruders. But they use those only in cases of danger when they feel a threat, so I never got to smell the repellent scent made famous through countless accounts. They can and have operated high technological devices and spacecraft requiring logical understanding when in situations where their help is needed. But their species has not developed any technologies nor external material tools. Neither have they developed artistic creation, culture, nor the ability to play music and sing, having no need to create tools and produce art as they can project their thoughts. Their primal wild lifestyles may seem raw and primitive for us humans, but their extended knowledge of the cosmic order through their telepathic connection with the greater soul of their species and their psychic abilities to project images and energies directly into the minds makes their intelligence greater than ours on some levels, while humans are gifted with speech, creativity, art, inventions, and culture. So when their people and our people were still connected, it was a beneficial exchange for both sides. As younger brothers, our humans can also contribute to the well-being of our elder brothers, Sasquatch. We thanked each other for this conversation, and as he knew I was on my way out, he bid me farewell. He explained that he had remained invisible during this last meeting, as the woods around were getting invaded with some of my people who couldn't relate to him. So he couldn't remain around any longer as more pickers were moving into the area. But he said that we could always remain connected in spirit. Now that we were friends, he would recommend me through telepathy to the greater soul of the species. This last encounter made me understand how each individual Sasquatch has a different personality that connects in its own way and on different levels with the greater soul of their species, like to a matrix binding them all. They don't have all the same experience, feelings, and wisdom, but they all can access their collective knowledge through the greater soul of their species. It is comparable somehow to us humans tapping into the internet to share news or learn what happens elsewhere, except that when Sasquatch connects with their mother soul, they can't lie or hide any intentions from their people. Their medicine is that of transparency and honesty, so this Sasquatch could see and know right away of my previous encounters, but he was more interested in communicating for the first time with a human on a friendly level than in teaching me about their history that had been previously transmitted to me. The information that he shared with me about their people was adding various new elements to what I had already been taught concerning their personalities, emotions, and perceptions of the human species. It also instructed me on their love of spiritual music as one way to communicate, apart from telepathy. If you run into Sasquatch someday, do not deny, hide, or fear. Open your consciousness to the message their soul carries, and if you find nothing better to do, sing a loving spiritual chant from your heart. Our family of conscious two-leggeds and intelligent earthlings is far more wider, wiser, stronger, and more ancient than it is generally believed by our young, remodified cultures. We have some allies in this home planet, as well as in the heavens, who are willing to help and waiting for us to reconnect with our spiritual knowledge to bring the changes needed in our healing process and restore the cosmic order. May all beings in all the worlds be free and happy. May we be united. We are all relatives. That's the end of chapter 6. This is Diana from DivineFractal.com. And remember, be fearless, fill your heart with love, and create art. Love you guys.